Welcome, anybody and everybody, to Flat Earth Nation. Mud Flood was Armageddon because that's what I believe. Mud Flood was Armageddon on a flat Earth. And I've been looking for people to debate me in a fair and honest way to talk about the scripture. But it does always come back to, Bible studies. And, that's kind of a funny title that there was a time when more people were listening. And we all learned from the past. Everybody has. I learned from the past. Perhaps, it's time to, slow down, because we're moving into the most important phase of our life. And it's not this election because it's going to lead up to the next election and it's going to be the biggest. We're at the most important phase of our life because we know something's going on. We're aware that the stones are crying out. Things are happening in God's timing, and I kind of want to backtrack, how I got to the point of where, and I think, it goes back 10 months when, and it was Noah Church and a lot of people left, when it says there was a time when I preached to more, but there wasn't a time when it was more important. And this is going to go into why I think the books written by Luke, the Gospel of Luke and Acts, are so important, because what we've been studying and learning from the life of Paul is that this was the message to the Gentiles, that the gospel was preached to Abraham, that in him, all nations will be blessed. And were all the clues that were missed along the way of, the light to the Gentiles. And the misconception among many people who are waiting for the rapture, actively, supporting Israel, voting for bad people because they want that, secretly the rapture is going to come. And that way we're going to force the hand and let's get into that tribulation period. Well, the whole reason I got to that, and I will share the screen now, and I'm going to try to be careful because I'm trying to save bandwidth because I've had trouble in the last couple of shows. Please understand if anything goes wrong. So I have it set up to share, and I need to do that. Let's just go over the tabs of, we did that last night. So this is, we didn't have a chance to get to primogeniture. And this is, going to be important in Bible studies and, just learning about, there was laws and customs we need to learn about, and when they go, oh, it is the right, we have to know, well, what do they mean by the right? By law or by custom? So there's two different ways you can gather rights. But we've all heard that, the firstborn child to inherit the parent's entire or main estate in preference to shared inheritance among all or some of the children. And, that goes back to the Dark Ages as we try to commonly define, what we would say is normal and other people would call patriarchy. And how they got their Leviathan type of, structure of different nobilities and classes that it seemed ruled around the world. And I'm thinking my consensus of opinion is going to, somehow this ties into the time of the Gentiles, because we aren't getting the whole story. In Luke, when I was first going over it, I was thinking a Theophile. That's not a person's real name. It's just used these two times in the introductions to Luke, who was a companion and medical, I'm sure the doctor of the beloved apostle Paul. And, it's, Theophilus, or, it could have just been, to all of you Greek God lovers, like Luke was, the people spoken of in the Bible who had the greatest faith were Gentiles. The people who built synagogues for the Hebrews were Gentiles. I believe it was the time of the Gentiles, the rapturist waiting on the time of the Gentiles. And then, oh, we're in it now because, somehow the Jews didn't recognize that Jesus was the Messiah. When they realize it, that, then our time to get saved, it's a parentheses, because Jesus only came to save the Jews, but now it was an afterthought. That's what they teach, which is just as ridiculous as ignoring that the gospel was preached to Abraham and that Jesus was, he was going to be the light to the Gentiles, that it was all planned. So, the letters to Luke and the book of Acts are to those Greek God lovers, of which we are. The other Bibles were, for Peter and the expansion of the gospel to the Hebrews, which was very, and some would argue probably equally as important. So that, I looked up something here. Let me go back and make sure. Where did I start here with O Theophilus? It was probably just finding Luke and getting set up on it, because I wanted to look up. Oh, see, yep, I just picked this up because I was studying this last night when Matt and I were having a discussion about what is there a bottomless pit? Why did the KJV stick with the bottomless pit, and then later everybody else, either felt obligated, but eventually we realized it's always been an abyss. And I held up a picture of an eyeball. So I stopped here on Pleirophoria to have accomplished it. Everything has been accomplished, to fulfill, to bring to full measure. And that's what Luke was saying. All of you people that have heard about it and that have studied it, I have this firsthand experience, and I'm going to write a gospel and then how it fell out to, because this is going to fully convince you. This is the things that have come to pass. This is what Luke wanted to accomplish, the things that have been accomplished. The KJV said, which are most surely believed, fully assured, fully persuasive. This is what the Greeks were taught as the highest level of, to their part of the light, for lack of a better word. I got there from here, just realizing that there are 6 different usages of it. The one time of all things being accomplished is rare in Luke 1, where it's used about that. It is, there's only one occurrence of each. So this would be the prefix. The suffix and the root word are always the same. There's just a little change in the prefix. It looks like a strong root word. Close that off, because this is going to keep this a short video, because I want to try to plan to have that Bible study today. Now, so when I looked up the word Theophilus, 23:21, using these 2 times, again, with the, it means to those who want to be a friend of God, Theophilus, And then it goes, a friend of Luke, of equestrian rank. Maybe because he was a doctor and he hung out with Paul, they assumed that, but they really don't mention anything about that would lead us to believe. Or are they saying a friend of Theophilus was a friend of Luke, and Luke is of equestrian rank? And we know that Paul was born, make sure I'm still sharing here, he was born a Roman citizen, something that other people had to buy. So I do see that. Good to see there. It is showing and sharing. So the equestrian rank, you know me, I'm naturally inquisitive. Said, what is that? Somehow I ended up looking at the Praetorian Guard. So we should go back. When you look up the equestrian rank, as aforementioned in the definition of Theophilus, the equestrian rank brings up equites. And so I probably clicked on that. Equites, I believe, from what I'm thinking now, is this developed. It's like a Leviathan. It's like our beast system. We have cops, soldiers, patrolmen, state troopers. Someone they prefer to be called, I'm an officer, I'm a deputy, I'm the sheriff, I'm an agent, I'm a special agent for the FBI. And it lasted, man, even through the 1,000-year reign of Christ, from before it, through it, and now they're trying to go back to the Greek system of it. What exactly is the Greek system of it? We see, well, the Equestrian Knights, because these were people that got to ride on horses, literally horse or cavalrymen, though sometimes referred to as knights in English, constituted the second of the property-based classes of ancient Rome. One of the things I found interesting about the property-based classes when I was studying them is that nobody was allowed to carry weapons back then. It was a de-armed society that in the equestrian, the equites, and they're pretty low on the totem pole compared to some, as we shall see. But overall, this is your imperial roble ranks, gentries, and chivalrics that started, but look at them. Emperor, empress, king emperor, queen emperor, below the emperor, Kaiser, czar, czarina, high king, high queen, great king, great queen, king queen, archduke, czarevich, grand duke, grand duchess, prince regent, prince elector, prince, prince, princess, crown prince. Again with the czarina, duke, duchess, and it lists the sons of Esau were considered dukes. His descendants were considered dukes, herzogs, princely courts, sovereign princesses, boyar, a marquis, landgrave, Count Palatine, Viscount, Baron, Lord of the Parliament, an advocatus. Maybe during the Dutch Middle Ages, an advocus was an office holder who was legally delegated to perform some of the secular responsibilities of the major feudal lord. Many such positions developed. So he's the overseer. Cut that wheat with a sickle when I tell you to cut that wheat with a sickle. And I've got these rod and staff. I'm going to make sure you're picking it right. Well, they were the advocatesses. Below them, still yet, barons, baronets. Nope, baronets were below the advocates. Barons over here. But a knight was, and so was a lord. But a lord of the manor is below an equus, a knight, a chevalier, A lady, a dame, a sir, a sire, madam, ditto. For elder, fry, and seigneur, they're all below the equus, the horse riders, along with the lord of the manor, gentlemen, gentries, esquire. Gentries are the people they sent to the United States to say, hey, you want to go clear some wild lands? All you have to do is poison some Indians. They were the Gentile families, or they're gentle families of long descent who say, a good place to put people who did heroic works for them, or maybe your bastard children, if you were back then in those times, maybe on the dark side. Oh, yeah. But, that didn't even get into mention the censurate assemblies and things. So there's still got to be more. Because I was remembering my old name about the Praetorian Guard, and I didn't see them mentioned with these guys. Second of the property-based classes. The property-based classes, they have, in this form of it, they have class one. They had it all, just like a hierarchy of the Rosicrucians, Freemasons, whatever you want to call them in your own little world. I'm just begging for people to want to study the Bible with me in a new and deeper way where we are all a little more discerning. Now, here's what's very interesting. Talking about armor and weapons. The proletariat, you don't get shit. The class fives, you get no armor and a single weapon. Class 4, little armor, few weapons. Some armor, few weapons. There's some difference between little and some. Class 2, you're way up there still. You get almost full armor and still some weapons, as in the same lingo as some armor. Now, class 1, full armor, but you get some weapons. That's class 1. A legion is 100,000. Equestrians, they're pretty high, 18 here. Horse, full armor, various weapons. You're still not, and you're high up there, but they weren't shown, because when you look up the FINDAP, a part of that was De Area Praetorita. And I was trying to remember, how did I used to spell it? Because I wanted people to remember when the original Flat Earth Nation golden age passed, before I changed it to FinGap, because people just kept stumbling over. They couldn't believe. You're not supposed to make up Latin words of your own. Well, too bad. I wanted it to mean that God ruled the world like a Praetorian Guard in the past. So that's what that word implies. Yeah, it's pastism, but it was already ruled. But once again, it was a lesson in, well, I don't want to say that there's baby food and then go working your way up to strong meat. But some things are a little too hard to jump into, I guess, right off the bat. But we do know now a lot of things. But still, it was off the list, but it's always been important to me. And now I realize it because they were fully armed and fully weaponed up, unlike, I think, anyone else. The Praetorian Guard was a unit of the Imperial Roman army that served as personal bodyguards and intelligence agents for the Roman emperors. After Rome's transition from republic to empire. Okay? they had no king but Caesar, and he designated the Praetorians as his personal equestrian branch. And that's what he came from, the equestrian branch. Now you know why some people went like, who is this guy? ¿Qué es eso? ¿Cómo se llama? For 3 centuries, the guards of the Roman emperor were also known for their palace intrigues. Think Three Musketeers, think David's mighty men. Oh, in 312, disbanded and destroyed their barracks and things like that, and where they kept their horses were stables, like what Jesus was born in. I'm not saying Jesus was born in Rome, of course not, but he was born by a star fort, baby. The Praetorian Guard of Imperial Rome, the time of the Gentiles, because the Romans were the Greeks talked about, the Persians, the Etruscans. They're Greeks. They're the ethne, Gentiles. They're not the other people. The hobbits, the Denisovians, the whatever. They're probably spin-offs somewhere in the back of Abraham, but not of the seed. Yeah, I'm calling them Esauites. I'm stalling because I'm wondering if I'm still online. I'm trying to time it here. It's going to take a hit. Mike's live stream had some things on there with the Flat Earth music guru, where they were cutting up some rocks and doing some real nephorensics. I think it's worth, skipping around on, and things like that. I really do. Thanks for your question, Muddy Orphans. Glad to see you here. And this is really, this is where we're at now. I feel I had 10 wasted months since, Noah and a girl from my past who came up saying, like, I think Alan wanted to smell my hair. And as soon as she's on a show and I said, well, did anybody ask her about the time she was accused of incest? And all of a sudden she shut up and the whole controversy went away, because 2 of the most perverted people in the whole world started railing accusations against me. And all of a sudden it shrunk down to this. And I acted as if they were unimportant sinners, because that's what they were and remain. The truth is what's going on. The work was out there. I guess why I had to rebuild my credibility with some. Other people were out there doing the stones and taking it towards Atlantis. I'm not saying that's what Mike is doing. He obviously, was saying, I'm praying to the universe, because he was watching the work before I thought I could take on somebody I trusted like Noah, before I realized now, you know what? Yeah, there was people that, Jesus said, obviously, which were some of you, when he talked about, there were some murderers, some homosexuals that had been converted, when he said, which were some of you, but you have repented. Well, right now, it's going to be a really long way again before I try to say, here's a co-pastor. He's a repentant homosexual, not maybe one of these guys. Oh, I did it once and twice, but he was open marching in the parades and stuff. So those days are over. Have I learned a lesson to be more discerning? Yes. Did Paul learn a lesson from Paul? And at the end, did everyone turn away from Paul, the one who brought the gospel to the Gentiles? Well, the rocks are crying out. And from the very beginning, my stated goal was it's not going to go to Atlantis. I think I was first. Mike thinks he was first. Roger Spur thinks he was first. Time will tell. my videos got taken down by YouTube for no apparent reason. But there's still enough out there to know that, you know, I was there at the beginning. They're eyeball Earth. Maybe that was me. Maybe it was Casey Brown. It started at the same time. I think it was me. Time will tell when we review everybody's motives and observations. But we've got, you know, in their world, it's like, who cares? I'm getting raptured. Or who cares? We're just trying to make America get back to the Constitution. And, you know, we'll get past Trump and Epstein when they show those tapes. Because, you know, they're coming. This isn't, you know, they want to make it about still the same thing, right versus left. That's over. It has to be. If you don't think that they're saving tapes on Trump, that if you're going to be like, yeah, but he's not. Yes, he's one of those guys. You don't get where he got working with the mob, opening casinos in Atlantic, unless you're one of those guys. Not Atlantic, New Jersey. What do they call that? The Atlantic coast there, Gold Coast, whatever it is. Nobody wants to hear it. Avian hygiene. Yeah, man. So much crazy stuff going on in this world. I'm glad I was still sharing. Look at all these social classes. Only Romans who were wealthy enough to afford their own armor were allowed to serve in the army, which consisted of both. So you could work your way up. As long as a citizen could afford armor, he was able to be a soldier. Well, you don't have their armor. They give us our armor. You know, you can go buy your stuff, but their armor, I think, is a lot more satanic than they let it on to be. So where did this come from? The Equites. Second tier of the elite class. Any videos on them? Because right now I'm counting on the Holy Spirit to fill this in. Otherwise, I'm going to just, you know, here's where they lived. Barracks. Where's your stables? I'd like to see their stables. They're supposed to be such horse people. This is what they want to go back to. This wasn't that long ago. And he's digging in the rocks. I've got rocks polished here, going like crazy. I showed this rock the other day. Yeah, thank you, Eternal Living Ministry. Eternal Living Water Ministry. Right on time, as usual. It was Atlantic City. I remember I showed this rock the other day. Let me line it up the way it goes. This was one of these rocks that I was heating up with fire. And it has that round swell of where the vortex are. And if you can get some, hopefully we can. You know, you can see that it is, well, here's the part that was the marble. This is the entrance and the skin. And I was holding it in my hand because of how razor sharp this is. I was trying to think of what you could use it for. You know, it's one of these, it is completely like that obsidian that is razor sharp. And as I was holding it in my hand, all of a sudden this happened. This part was broken all along. That it held together for, you know, the first couple of times I showed it, because on this side, you actually can see more of the swirling patterns in the stone, if I can get it focused a little bit. And then it just dropped off. But it's always on the outside. It's always one of those things where it would split right where there's a valve. Now with Tommy's back and everything, he's getting a lot, you know, we'll get some more pictures. We have all the pictures of stones. But what I want to do is I want to be more interactive, and because I don't feel I need to, you know, pound at it, you know, my position anymore. It's going to be there waiting when everybody else out there that has gotten that 10-month head start on, look at Atlantis's rocks. Because if you go out there, there's people that believe now, and now that, you know, Stellium 7's doing nephorensics, it's only going to get more and more obvious to people that, like, okay, it's biological. That doesn't mean they're going to open their eyes to the Bible. That is not only my responsibility. Once you've heard this, and once people believe that Jesus Christ is the chief living stone, and we are living stones to build up gold, silver, and precious stone in us, in our hearts, because we can't carry anything with us when we die. And God, whether you like it or not, is someone who loves to reward people who do good things in his name, because you were saved by grace to do good works in his name. See what we had here. Remember when, you know, we were looking, you know, we could look at rocks.
Listen, and I showed you before, that would be softer, a softer material. Not sure what this one is, but it's just got body parts written all over it. Don't know, can't quite tell from the shape on this one what it might have been. This one's a complete, it's an agate. It's got all kinds of patterning. It looks very biological.
You know, that's, you know, and the reason we're not doing this now was easily disproven, you know, that I'm sure I ever lied to Noah and that I dropped him off in a hurricane when it was witnessed by everybody in the world on the show going, I don't want to take him back to New Orleans. I want to go back. We're going to go back and it's going to be great. And then when the hurricane hit, come get me. There's a hurricane going on. The roads are closed. You hate me. What kind of crap is that? And has anybody heard from Web Danubi? Why'd this all stop? That's satanic. And you can go to some of the peoples and is it time to get over it? Are we going to be studying the Bible? Are we going to be moving on with the stones and realize that everything was on video when Tommy and I were saying, don't go back to New Orleans, and he had to go. And then all of a sudden the next week, he's out with lies galore about, you know, that would need Tommy's collaboration and your collaboration to say things that you didn't hear me say, that I said, I don't think you should go back to New Orleans. 10 months has gone by, and now the stones are the number one growing, trending topic on YouTube. And I'm still here, you know, ready to study the Bible. Was it Theophilus? Was it Luke? And then there's the people came in, and it's like, well, you were too mean to people that weren't ready to accept the Apostle Paul. Because in my world, that means you're not accepting the gospel. Jesus gave the commission to Paul, or the Bible's not true. So are we going to realize there's bots out there, and they are not for flat earth nation, golden age past, mud flood was Armageddon, and that you have I'm offering myself as a lifelong guy saying we did this and that, and nobody said anything about my past or anything, because they can't, until all of a sudden Noah goes like, he was mean to me. And some girl that has in his 3 marriages, accused of no kidding. When somebody tells me, not in counseling session, don't believe it if anybody tells you I was accused of incest. What? And that was believed? My witness was never that bad, that shouldn't have been given the benefit of the doubt. That would have had to be a satanic attack for God's timing, because the storm is here right now. And it's going to be like from this weekend through this, pretend election, as other people believed that system of Rome was working well. Like they believe that our system is working well. If we could only get back to the Constitution, those people, it's a good system. Well, so is communism if it worked right. But what do we say? Communism will never work right. And what do they say? It's always going to be crony capitalism, because there's always men with our hearts running them. Now, I decided to make this video for as long as I could stand it, to have my air conditioner turned off, because it's 92 degrees out. I'm in a walled off section of my apartment loft, because that's how it gets in the summer. And that's why the internet is bad. And that's why it's like we get people, Tommy and I are trying to run it on 2 guys' retirement pay. And everybody thinks like, well, why can't he do it better? If it was, because this is the best we can do. But we want to study the Bible. I want to study the Bible. I want to teach the Bible. I want people to say, could this be true? And in a Bible study, go around, what about it? Are we good here? Is that too much to ask for someone that has your best interest at heart? Because I do. This is flat earth nation. Mud flood was Armageddon. I've been saying it for 7 years. And it's we can rock on or nitpick about, should I have driven into a Hurricane Ida, which destroyed New Orleans and left people dead in New York City, and I didn't go save them, and all of a sudden I'm too mean to people that don't like the Apostle Paul? It is time for us to get our priorities straight, because I have mine figured out, and they are that Jesus Christ is God in the flesh. And I can't wait. I don't know what Randy's doing tonight, but I know that it's his last work before he retires too. We did the whole thing. We're not counting on this money being there in 30 years when we're 100. Be real in your own life. Flat Earth Nation, I'm never going to tell you anything else. Why would I? Trying to prove I have your best interest at heart, as called by God. Amen. Hallelujah. Aho.